Greg Kozera is now joining us. He's the Director of Marketing for Shale Crescent USA. Now, this is a nonprofit, non-governmental organization founded by business and community leaders to raise the standard of living for people in the Ohio Valley, it's a former Rust Belt, by bringing back high-wage manufacturing jobs, something that we've been calling for on this show for years. Now, marketing in Shale Crescent USA region takes natural gas and natural gas liquids. In a former life, Greg was president of Virginia Oil and Gas Association from 2010 to 2014. Greg, thanks for being with us, man.
Hey, John, good to be with you and appreciate all you do.
Well, thanks, Greg. I'd say a numero uno is the pipeline in going through West Virginia, Virginia, and North Carolina to bring natural gas, jobs, energy. I mean, this is the craziest thing. So now we got another judge that just stopped work on it for no reason. I mean, how do these judges do this thing? Is FERC has approved it, everybody's approved it. You know, there's always going to be a handful of people that don't want it in their backyard or whatever. But now we've got a judge someplace for some environmental reason. I don't know, maybe a squirrel was dislodged or something. How did this one judge have the ability to stop an entire 1,000-mile pipeline?
Well, John, I'll tell you what, there's an alternative. And to your point, that's exactly what Governor Cuomo's done in New York State. We've been trying to get pipelines up to New England for years. And your listeners may not know this, but last winter, because they don't have pipelines and it was so cold, they had a natural gas shortage. They had 2 loads of liquid natural gas from Russia pull into Boston Harbor and unload at $100 an MCF for those poor folks up there. We pay about $3.50 down here. And can you imagine, we get this abundant natural gas, just the region that I work in, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. If that was a country, John, those 3 states, we would be the 3rd largest natural gas producer in the world. The only 2 places that produce more gas than that little section of the United States is Russia, number 2, and the rest of the United States, number 1. So can you imagine, we got all this abundant gas because of Cuomo. Those folks are paying $100 an MCF, and I can't even fathom Russian gas pulling into Boston Harbor. But that's what happens when you don't have pipelines.
On a cargo ship. I mean, this is what amazing, because that was in Massachusetts, in Western Mass. They blocked the pipeline. All they would have had to do was hook it up to where you all are in the Ohio Central Valley. They get the gas cheap, goes right in. They blocked it, no pipeline. Then they run out of energy. They can't heat the homes. So then you have to buy it from the Russians at, what was that, 50 times the price or something?
Oh, it's
30 times the price.
You know, $3 versus $100. That's the differential.
And then ship it on
your gas bill.
And then ship it on a tanker halfway across the world. How does that make any sense, Greg?
It doesn't, and that's why. And you know, pipeline. I lived next to a pipeline, have for 30 years, and great neighbor. That's where my dogs played. That's where the deer eat. You know, I'm not worried about pipeline safety because we've lived there. We know what it's all about. So a lot of these things, I think, from an environmental standpoint, pipelines are probably the best thing we've got going for us. They're certainly the most efficient, but also from an environmental standpoint. You know, what a lot of folks, when I was in Virginia, one of the things we learned about pipelines and pipeline right-of-ways, that's what we call first growth. The state of Virginia was loving it because that's where you could have some grasslands. That's what deer don't eat in the woods. They eat in those pipeline right-of-ways and places like that. So it's a big deal. It's really not a negative for the environment. It's a positive. And, you know, a few years ago, I found out from Virginia Natural Gas that they had to curtail the naval base in Norfolk because there wasn't enough gas. So what people got to realize is when it's cold, I have family in Virginia Beach, so when it gets really cold, I want to make sure their gas stays on. It's that important, John.
You know, but what gets me is, so they've got this Atlantic Coast pipeline. I mean, it's a done deal, right? It's already half under construction, and some judge can just sign an order and stop it. Like, how does that happen? That's just incredible.
I guess there's all kinds of, you know, I guess people know how to throw roadblocks up. And I think it's going to take people, just like you were talking to your listeners this morning, to step up to the plate and say, hey, to their legislature, to their elected officials in Washington, say, hey, enough, because right now I live on top of a natural gas storage field, and because my house was built in the 80s when there wasn't enough gas, I'm on electric. My electric bill is over $400 a month average. My son is in Maryland. He's got natural gas in his house. He's got 4 kids. His utility bill, electricity and gas, is half of mine. Now, that's what it means to people. Just, nobody realizes what they have until it goes away. But, the other thing that I'm doing right now, I'm in economic development, and matter of fact, as we speak, I've got folks that have come into this region. I'm showing them sites. They're going to build a plant here because we have cheap, abundant natural gas. So when you're looking at jobs, that's why people are coming here. We were in Japan last year, John, because the Japanese had no idea that this is where the growth in natural gas supply is coming from, West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. So those are real jobs, and that's what can happen in Virginia. Those jobs are going to be really, we're not talking about low-wage, minimum wage stuff. We're talking about high-wage manufacturing jobs that are career-oriented jobs. That was what it can mean for Virginia and the Carolinas.
Well, that's exactly it, And, Greg, we've been talking about this for a long time. I would just want to see it get done because it's jobs on two ends. It's jobs making the pipeline, and that's about 8,000 jobs for Virginians. They're high-paying jobs. But then after that, it brings manufacturing. Look, I even had Democratic candidate for president, Terry McAuliffe, on my show, former governor, a couple of weeks ago. And he said, opposing these pipelines, if you want to bring jobs to Virginia, is positively insane. I mean, he said that right in the show, and he's a Democratic candidate running for president with, a legitimate shot to be the nominee. I mean, he gets it. And he's,
it's interesting. He's part of the reason I do what I do, because I was president of Virginia Oil and Gas Association when he had his energy conference, and he was talking about the jobs that these pipelines were going to bring to Eastern Virginia. And I live in West Virginia, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's West Virginia gas that's going to Virginia. He's going to bring jobs to Virginia with that. I'm thinking, the gas is already in West Virginia and Ohio. Why can't we do the same thing up here? They weren't even thinking in this part of the world, let's all ship the gas out. And I'm saying, no, we want to keep some here. This is really what you need. Wells are temporary. Petrochemical plants and manufacturing facilities are long-term, high-wage jobs. So Terry's right on. He really is.
I know, and look, I appreciate what you're doing. We're with Greg Kozera. He's the director of marketing for Shale Crescent USA. This is a nonprofit, non-governmental organization founded by business and community leaders to raise the standard of living for people in the Ohio Valley by bringing back high-wage manufacturing jobs. By the way, just what President Trump promised he would do. And so I appreciate your work there. Where do we go from here? Because there's no argument against natural gas and pipelines by anybody that follows the economy, anybody that has a job, anybody that understands this. The opposition is the very, very extreme environmentalists who don't want the pipelines. And when this first started, Greg, I used to think, well, they don't want the pipelines because they think it's dangerous or it's eminent domain. And then I would get stats that said, well, there's never been an accident with a pipeline, but the alternative is train or truck, and there's been plenty of accidents there. So as I dug into this, here's what I learned. They just don't want the natural gas because it's fracking. Like, they just want sun and wind, and they would rather, I guess, get mice in a wheel or something. But they don't want any energy because it doesn't make any sense.
Get it, and I think what a lot of those people don't even grasp is, we think of natural gas for fuel, but it's petrochemicals. It's the clothes I'm wearing, the phones we're talking on. It's their cell phones. But my message to all those, they're not environmentalists. I don't even call them that because that's what I do. I can say, look, show us. Get rid of your cell phone, get rid of your car, show us life without petrochemicals, because you can't even build windmills and solar panels without fracking and natural gas. Can you imagine that?
Crazy. I mean, it just makes no sense. And if you look at all the forms of non-renewable energy, natural gas is the cleanest, right? It's the
Absolutely.
Safest. It's the cheapest. So you would think that the environmentalists that were really concerned about the environment would be so much in favor of this because, better than oil, better than coal, right? Burns cleaner, cheaper, easier to transport. And so you're not got oil on a ship where they have they run into a sandbar and destroy, the coast off Alaska or things of that nature. You're not drilling inside the ocean. A pipeline breaks and it goes on for weeks like we've seen. It's the safest, cleanest form of energy. And you would think that the environmentalists would be all in favor of it. But see, they don't want any energy that's not renewable. They want sun and wind, and that's it. And, if the whole country right now with the sun and wind, that could back about 10% of our total fuel needs. 10%. I mean, basically the economy would collapse and the country would shut down. So it makes no sense.
Most people don't know that you can't, in the wintertime, sun doesn't always shine, wind doesn't always blow. When I get home from work, I want heat, I want light, and that's exactly the time that you wouldn't have it if we had to depend on those energy sources.
I know.
But, something that, from an environmental standpoint, one of the things that they don't grasp is the global aspect, John, because this planet, the middle class around the world is growing. We're going to have another 2 billion people. They want the same stuff that we got, cars and cell phones and all those modern conveniences. And those all come from petrochemicals. So the plants are going to get built. That's not even a question. But the only decision is, are we going to let them be built in China and in India and places across the pond under their environmental law, or are we going to let them be built here where they'll be the cleanest, most efficient on the planet? Because I say this: if you're not against if you're against pipelines, if you're against fracking and all this natural gas, then you're not environmentalist. Because at the end of the day, we're actually cleaning up the planet. We've lowered CO2 in this country by 14%. The rest of the planet's up because of what they're building over there. Has doesn't even compare to ours. So it's a big deal. If you want a cleaner planet, you need to be back in pipelines. You need to be back in construction here because we know we can control this. We can't control how the Chinese build their stuff.
Well, Greg, the Chinese, come on, Greg. The Chinese are building a coal plant a month with no filters, no environmental protection. That black smoke is just going. It's so bad that they have to wear masks in Beijing. You get out into some of these areas where these coal plants are, it's even worse. They're building a coal plant a month. They don't care who dies. This is a communist country.
California, he doesn't realize that damn smoke's coming to his state. No wonder
it's unbelievable. And then Obama was trying to do the Paris climate change deal, and he went to the Chinese. He went to Beijing, and he says, I came back with a deal. They said they'll think about stop building coal plants in 2030. They'll think about it. And Obama's like, I got a deal. It's like,
Trump
it's unbelievable.
Let's just say I'm not convinced that climate change is what everybody says it is. But let's say hedge my bet. But at the end of the day, Trump has actually done more than Obama for the environment and to fight against potential climate change. What's happened under the Trump administration, we're lowering CO2, all those things that by promoting our energy and natural gas and industry here, Trump's actually done more than 8 years of Obama when you think about it that way.
All right, man, I got to go. I'm out of time. I want to thank Greg Kozera for being with us, Director of Marketing for Shale Crescent USA, bringing jobs and energy to the Ohio Valley. The president said he would have manufacturing jobs there, and he is.
Absolutely.